Chapter 17. "I am the resurrection and the light," said Mr. Griffith, in his voice that was the voice of a man, noble of depth and beauty. "Amen," said we all. Out on the mountain we were, with the cold winds of night about us, and the flames of torches to light us, listening to Mr. Griffith before we went through the village to clear dross and uselessness from the valley. That day, a little girl had been savaged on the mountain, and when I came from school, the people were out in the street on the hill, and down in the village the shops were shut, and the chapel bell was ringing. While I was having my tea, my father came in, for the colliery had closed early for the men to be home and start the search for the swine in the form of man. "She is dead," my father said, and quiet in the voice. "But we will have him, if we have to move the mountain." "Go you," said my mother, in tears. Poor pretty little thing she was. I went with the men to trim the torches and carry the oil with other boys. My father and my brothers were there in amongst the crowd of 200 or 300, and all of them quiet and not speaking. Mr. Griffith had them on the side of the mountain, ready to go down into the village just after dark, after the men had just had time to bath and eat. He told them that the time had come when their women were no longer safe to go their ways in peace. "Beasts live among you," he shouted, "working with you shoulder to shoulder, who will kill your children and go their ways unpunished. They will make of your community a morass of corruption. Will you laugh if I talk to you of the evil one? Will you smile if I mention the name of Satan? Then let me show you the body of a child torn by murderous claws. Perhaps I shall see your heads flung back in guffaws. This little soul met her death not at the hands of a man, but at the talons of a beast. A beast. And beasts of that sort are the sons of Satan. Such beasts you shall exercise as he did with the Gadarene swine. Are we decided? Are we in one mind?" "Yes," said the crowd. "Then come," Mr. Griffith said, "let us cleanse ourselves." Down from the rock and out in front of the crowd, striking up a hymn as he went, down toward the village, Mr. Griffith led us. The boots of the men beat time upon the ground, and their voices flung the anthem before them, and the blaze of torches lit their bearded faces and struck sparks from their eyes. Into the village we went, and everything quiet. Doors shut, nor lights, nor people, and nor sound, but the march of men and the voice of justice. Around each public house, and all round the 3 rows of houses where the half-breed Welsh, Irish and English were living, the men took a stand, almost elbow to elbow, so that none could go in or out. Then Mr. Griffith and 20 men went into the first public house and warned the landlord to serve no spirits for a week, and to serve beer only to gangers in charge of 5 or more men, none to any women. Then to the second and to the third. It was a bad night for the public houses, for nobody was in them, and indeed the landlords were not to blame. They were good men in themselves, but they had to make a living too. But they had to suffer, and they suffered with silence. They knew it would only take a match to put them in the street with nothing, and the flames of their property to warn them. Up to the rows of houses where the dross of the colliers lived. These people did the jobs the colliers would never do, and they were allowed to live and breed because the owners would not spend money on plant when their services were to be had so much the cheaper. For a pittance they carried slag and muck, they acted as scavengers, and as they worked, so they lived. Even their children were put to work at 8 and 9 years of age, so that more money would come into the house. They lived, most of them, only to drink. Their houses were bestial sties, where even beasts would rebel if put there to live. For beasts have clean ways with them, and they will show their disgust quick enough, but these people were long past such good feeling. They were a living disgust. Up to those 3 rows of hovels went Mr. Griffith, and knocked upon the first door, but no answer. The mountain went up black into the night on all sides of us, and the knocking flew about in an echo trying to find a place of rest. The torches made a ragged ring about the houses, and below each torch, that streamed flame like the brown hair of a running fairy, men's faces were pale and shadowy pink, and their eyes deep holes, until they moved to show the flash of whites. Shadows of men leapt up the sides of the mountain, or were flung against the walls of the houses, whichever way the torch flames blew, and breath was grey about them, for the night was going to frost, and the slates of the roofs were showing something of silver, and fingertips were happy, only deep in the pocket. Again and again Mr. Griffith knocked, and at last a window, only big enough to let out a head, and the only window in all the house, opened and let out a head. "Who is it?" in a woman's voice, and thin with fright. "The vigilance," Mr. Griffith said, and his voice rolled into the night and about the mountain, and the torches moved as the men quickened all about, and their voices breathed a deep note. "Not us, not us," the woman screamed. "Nothing to do with us." "Open your door," said Mr. Griffith. "No harm shall come to the innocent. Open, and now." Back went the head, and in a moment the door was opened, and Mr. Griffith went inside with my father and Rhys Howells, and a couple of moments later they came out pushing 3 men before them. "Get you over there," Rhys Howells said to them, and pointed to the place where an old shaft had been sunk and closed up again. Into the hole they went, and men moved up to guard them. Into house after house Mr. Griffith went, and now with no more trouble, for doors were opening before he had to knock. All the men were brought out, and the women told to keep inside with their children. When the last was under guard, Mr. Griffith came to take his place upon the rock, with all of us about him in a ring. "Now," he said, "let the men be brought one by one for questioning." With them all it was the same. First their names, their jobs, their wages, and which shift they were on that day. For if they were on the day shift, they could not have been on the mountain to meet the little girl. It was the night shifters and the work shies we were after. One by one they came and went, all of them quiet and in fear, and some Irish, some Scotch, some English, and some interbred Welsh. So we came to Idris Atkinson, tall and thin beyond his length, white in the face and with 6 spots, long in their hair and restless with his hands, with nails chewed to make you turn your eyes from him. "Day or night shift?" Mr. Griffith asked him. "Day," he said, and looking from side to side without moving his head. "Which level?" asked Mr. Griffith. "No business of yours," he said to the ground. "Which level?" asked Mr. Griffith in the same voice, quiet and without edge. "Third," he shouted after a wait. "Third was closed today," Rhys Howells said, and folded his arms, rocking on his heels, looking up at the mountain. Then he stood still, and his eyes went to Mr. Griffith. Quiet, except for the whisper of the torches, and the tiny sounds that come from many men who wait with breath held tight. Swine looked about him with his mouth open and his nostrils wide, and his eyes gone red with fear, and his voice gone from him in the silence, with his blunt and twisted hands restless about his clothes that were polished stiff with grease and coal dust, and fell about him and showed his thinness through gapes at elbow and knee. "Go down to his house," said Mr. Griffith, "and bring the women here. Look well for his clothes and his cap." "Nothing there," whispered Swine. "Nobody in the house. Not me. I never done it." But men were on their way down at a run. Quiet again, and nobody looking at Swine crying on his knees and looking round towards the house. Then a shout from down there, and men running back to us, and all talking and taking big breaths to ease themselves. Evan Thomas and Sean Prosser had an armful of clothes each. Evan put a flannel shirt, black with dirt and dried hard, with blood, on the rock in front of Mr. Griffith. All the other clothes, a coat, a waistcoat, and a pair of trews, had blood on them, and on the cap it was yet damp. "Did you have an injury today?" Mr. Griffith asked him. "No," said Swine, standing now and shaking. "A pony it was." "No pony was blooded today or yesterday," said Llewellyn John, the ostler, from the back of the crowd. "Days and days ago it was," said Swine, in a woman's voice. "But the blood is fresh," said Mr. Griffith, "and it smells. And you wore these clothes today. Open your clothes to show your chest." "No," said Swine, and put his hands about him, and fell to his knees. In her fingernails were pieces of flesh, said Mr. Griffith, with quiet. So his spirit left its mark. Open your clothes. No, screamed Swine. Rhys Howells and Tom Davis went to him and took a piece of coat on his back each and pulled it in halves from him. And as he screamed, they tore away the rags which covered him under the coat. Deep scratches covered his chest, like thick ruled pencil lines, and when they pulled away his trews, blood was on him, and all the time he screamed. Naked, he clawed at the ground, and the screams tired his throat, and he sobbed, and spittle fell from his mouth. "Where is the father?" asked Mr. Griffith, looking down at Swine. "I am here," said Cynlais Pritchard, and stood forward with his 3 sons, looking up at Mr. Griffith. "Your daughter has gone from you," said Mr. Griffith. "Instead, to see her grow to womanhood and have joy in your grandchildren, you will walk behind her tomorrow because a beast put his claws upon her as she walked the mountain. Your daughter was not of an age to be forward, and small blame we can put to her, for she left a message to you in the body of the beast itself." Silence, and Cynlais Pritchard trying to hold his tears with eyes shut blind, and fists digging into his thighs. "To hand her murderer over to the police will give him an extra day to live, which your daughter was denied," said Mr. Griffith. "He shall be fed and housed until the day he meets the rope, but your daughter will lie beneath the dead wreaths long before then, and the rope gives a good death, quick and clean, without blood, without pain, without torture of the soul and body. Is justice done then, with a rope about the neck of a man, and his victim, a child of 7 years, torn and twisted, long in her grave?" "No," said the crowd. "Shall we burn him?" asked Mr. Griffith. "But if we do, he will die a death of honour, for martyrs died in the flame. What then?" "Give him to me," said Cynlais Pritchard. "Is that your common decision?" Mr. Griffith asked the crowd. "Yes," they all shouted back. "Take him," said Mr. Griffith, "and as we do with him, so shall we do with the next, if next there is. And remember, if you bury him, however deep, you pollute innocent ground. Burden not the earth with such." One son took a torch, and the others helped their father to take Swine from there, and we all knew without telling that they would have him up where they had found the girl in her blood, and on the spot he would suffer. So we stood, and the light got smaller as they climbed, and the screams passed, and presently they were over a shoulder of the hill and out of sight. "Let us pray," said Mr. Griffith. "Lord God, we are weak men. If we have done wrong tonight, so be it. I will face thy wrath at the bar, and I will answer that we did right. And to each his just reward. In Christ's holy name, Amen." "Amen," said the crowd. And when Mr. Griffith got down, they started for home in quiet, saying nothing, watching for the light of the torch to appear above them on the mountain. The spark appeared, and with it a deep note from the crowd, but nobody stood. It went slowly to the right until it came to the briars beside the path that went up to the farm. There they had found the girl. It stopped and went out, and the mountain was black. The houses of the hill hid us from it as we went up, but when we went round the back to go in, a strong light was burning, as though they had fired the grass up there, and in the smoothness of the flame I thought I saw the movements of men. But I thought of Margaret too, and went in fear to bed. A policeman with a silver spike in his helmet and a silver chain hanging on it came to the valley next day, but nobody knew what he wanted, and nobody could be found to answer his questions, so he went off again. All the morning I watched Clydach Howell in his wheelwright's shop making the little coffin from the white heart of an old oak, and learnt a lot from him in the matter of putting joins instead of nails and screws, and nails and screws where they are not to be seen. I helped to quilt silk for the lining and tap studs in the shape of flowers all round the edge to keep it in place. So good was the job when it was done, I felt it a shame to put it in the ground. But I let Clydach take it to the house. I have never been one for a funeral. Cynlais and his wife and sons and their married daughters and their husbands and families were all down in the house when I took Mr. Griffith's books down to him. All the people in front of the house were in their best, ready to walk in the funeral procession up to the graveyard over the mountain. As they waited, they spoke of the night before, and many looked up at the black patch among the browns and greens of the mountainside. Inside the house, no other sound but the long, indrawn breathing and choking dolor of women long in tears, and weeping with eyes that are puffed to red soreness and throats thick with hours of wailing. The children were in the kitchen, sitting stiff in their best. The men were in the front, and the women were all upstairs sitting about the body in its coffin. Mr. Griffith was in the front with the men. "Thank you, my son," he said, when I gave him the books and speaking as though he had been quiet for a long time. "Go you in the kitchen and bring the children up, will you?" So out in the kitchen I went, and tried to make the small ones stop their tears, but they could hear their mothers crying, and so cried with them. Then the women came downstairs, and the coffin was brought down, and Mr. Pritchard came in to me and gave me a sign with a thumb to bring the children from the house. When we got outside, the people had formed up 2 by 2, stretching all the way down the street. Some friends of the family were walking behind the coffin, but most went on before. The hymn rose up in majesty, and white handkerchiefs were alive in the long untidy lines of black as the procession slowly went through the village and up the long path over the mountain. Few were watching us, for all in the valley were in the procession, excepting only those who were bedridden, and those who looked after them, and the men who were tending fires down at the colliery. Up and up, slowly we went, one hymn going into another, all singing, and the echo getting less and less as we neared the top and came free of trees. Then we stopped for the bearers of the coffin to have a rest, and handkerchiefs went, not to the eyes, but to foreheads and the back of necks, and coats came off and cloaks were folded, and boots that were pinching were eased off. The everyday things, those little jewels that stud in the action of living, were making themselves known. A blister on the heel, sweat about the neckband, a wrinkle in the stocking, were coming to mean more than the feelings brought forth by that which filled the little white coffin. Then up with the coffin again, and on, with another hymn to light the way, up and up, walking behind the lift and fall of the little white coffin, and the bowler hat about it, and the lines of black that now were breaking into 3s or 4s, with spaces coming wider as men went to help women, and the slope got more and more. Now the leaders were going over the edge, up there and passing from sight. Then the carriers were up there, dark against the deep blue of the sky, with the sun dancing upon the brass ornaments and making the whiteness sing. Over the other side then, and faster because we were going down, though not too fast, but easier and with more of relief, down to the field that had been made into a graveyard. Everybody made a big ring about the hole where they were going to bury the coffin, but Mr. Pritchard and his family went to stand close by, where the carriers had put to rest on the mound of gravel. Handkerchiefs were busy again among the lines of black as Mr. Griffith started to read, and all about and around his voice were the sounds of weeping, and the voices of many men calling out to affirm the truth of his words. Mrs. Pritchard had to be held down by her husband and sons when Mr. Griffith signed to the men to put the coffin down the hole, and she screamed herself red as all the people came near to pass by and look at it down there at the bottom. Women were fainting, and men carrying them to the sides to slap the backs of their hands and fan them, and the children with me were crying, and crying with none to take notice of them except me, and I could do nothing with them, or say anything, for I was never easy with small children. At last the people had stopped coming, and Mr. Griffith gathered a handful of earth to throw in. Then Mr. Pritchard let Mrs. Pritchard go to the edge and throw in some flowers and earth, and would have thrown herself in, but she was held tight and pulled back. All the Pritchard women were shouting, crying, with their men holding them, and their children holding their skirts and wild with crying, except one little boy by me who had cried himself out, and stood with his hands in his pockets and his mouth turned down, with nothing in his eyes but tiredness. Men came from behind me with shovels and threw in the hard earth, and it rattled and bumped on the wood, and with that sound Mrs. Pritchard went forward, white in the face, and her husband lifted her like a baby and carried her away. I could hear nothing of Mr. Griffith's prayer, for his voice was low and the sounds of weeping covered it. Then a hymn, uncertain in time and tone, and the burial was over. We went on faster than we had come, and not so tidily, with people going up the shortest way, not in lines now, but in families and with friends. I was slower at first, for the children wanted to play as soon as we were outside. But when they started to shout, they were hushed by men who turned round with frowns and fists. So we found our own way up and over, and we were long in front of the first when we got back to the Pritchard house. As soon as the first women got there, they took off their coats and cloaks, and rolled their sleeves to get out plates and boil water for the tea. More and more came, and then Mrs. Pritchard, who looked better, but still quick to cry if the wrong word was said, or the wrong look given. As soon as she came in, the food was set out, and the tables were laid, and the setting and laying seemed to take her out of herself, for she worked with the best, and the first to notice what wanted doing, or had not been done properly, and no sign of tears then. The men were all smoking out in the streets in front, but when they were called in, they tapped their pipes against the walls and sat where Mrs. Pritchard pointed to put them. 4 houses had opened their doors for the funeral tea, and in every house rooms were full of people eating and drinking, but in quiet, not like a birthday, with the food all come in from the back of Mrs. Pritchard's and carried by the girls and some of the boys to us, and to those outside who could not have places in. I had mine in the corner of Mrs. Pritchard's front room, with 2 small Pritchard boys, near to the table where Mr. Griffith and Mr. Pritchard and the chief people were having theirs. Nobody spoke for a long time, but they were busy with a knife and fork, and women were in and out with the tea, never stopping. Sad, Mr. Evans the colliery said. Sad. He was leaning back, done, with a stick at his teeth, looking through the window. Yes, indeed it is, Rhys Howell said. But a beautiful funeral indeed. Clydach Howell made a lovely job of that coffin. Nothing so pretty I have seen in my days. Thank you, Rhys, said Clydach, and going a bit red, so pleased he was. I shall be glad to do it for you, one day, man. I will see you safe in for one, Rhys said, and no danger, and that will be years, I hope. If I will go as that little one did today, Clydach said, I will go tomorrow. Beautiful it was indeed. And everybody nodded, and Mr. Pritchard smiled a bit about the table, as though happier to think so. I wish you could have seen it, he said. Do you think she saw it, Mr. Griffith? Is she in heaven yet, or is she waiting for her turn to come? In heaven, said Mr. Griffith, and looking at his plate. There is no waiting for children. Come unto me, said the Lord, and suffer the little children to come unto me. He said nothing about waiting. Glad I am, said Mr. Pritchard, and tears come in. But why she had to go there is no telling. She was happy enough here with us. She used to bring down my box to the colliery every dinner time, so happy as a bird in the sky, and always at the top here to meet me early shift. Why, I wonder? Who can read the mind of the Lord? Mr. Owen the mill said. Why is it, Mr. Griffith? Mr. Pritchard asked, and trembling in the voice, and the other men clearing their throats, and going to their cups for tea to drink, not to look at him. I cannot tell you, Mr. Pritchard, my little one, Mr. Griffith said, and his voice deep and full of sorrow, and bringing the room to quiet. No man can tell you. I could say she was taken as a punishment, or as a visitation. But what have you done, or your good wife? And if you were to be punished, why your little girl and not you? No, Mr. Pritchard, I cannot answer you, for nothing I could say would be the truth. The truth is beyond us, and is not in us. We go forward in faith. That is all. Yes, said Mr. Pritchard. I suppose so indeed, but it is very hard. Nobody can tell why the Son of Man had to go, Mr. Griffith said. He was Prince of Light. He could have ruled the world, but he was crucified, and when men would have fought for him, he told them to put up their swords. He allowed a rabble to crucify him. Why did he die in that way, when he could have chosen any? To save us, we know. But why did he die in only that way? It was ordained. Then dare we say that Dilys was ordained to die as she did? But why not me? Mr. Pritchard said. I have had my life. Not good, but I have done my best. I was ready to go in her place. I have no answer for you, Mr. Pritchard, my little one, Mr. Griffith said, and putting out a hand to touch Mr. Pritchard's arm. She was taken, and all argument is useless. We can only have faith in God, and resolve that the things which made a death possible shall be swept away, and now. Hear that all? Mr. Evans said. What can be done to that end, Mr. Griffith? Say, and I will do all I can. First, said Mr. Griffith, let me call a meeting for tomorrow night. Now, and in this house, is not the time or the place. But this you shall make clear in your minds, that little soul is not gone from us for nothing. She shall be heard of for long to come. Amen, said all the men. Thank you, Mr. Griffith, said Mr. Pritchard. That is a comfort to me indeed, but not much. Quiet came then, and my father winked me from the house, and I went home to my lessons. Though I did not work in school, I did plenty at night, and Mrs. Tom Jenkins or Davy and Yanto were always ready to help. Yanto and Davy had plenty of work of their own now, for the union was growing day by day, and Ellis the post was outside our house morning and night with big bundles of post for them, but they would always stop to give me help, and in return I wrote letters for them. Davy was working in our front, with Wyn to fold the letters as he finished, and Angharad to stick them down, and Yanto was painting a big sign for a meeting when I went in. How was the funeral? Davy asked me. Very good, I said. Was Jones Pentre Bach there? He asked. Yes, I said. I thought so, Davy said. Nobody could be buried without him at the funeral. Not one funeral missed in 20 years, him. A graveyard haunter. Such people make me sick. Well, Davy, Wyn said in surprise, the old man is only showing his respect for the dead boy. Respect, Davy said, with heat and contempt equal. It is not respect to go crawling after every coffin you can find. Worshippers of death and the rites of burial, human crows, they stink in the nostrils. The only part of the funeral they have got any interest in is the tea, Yanto said. Tea is out and tea in, and thus the status quo. You are too lazy to walk over the mountain, Wyn said, and angry. That is your excuse. Laziness. I will walk to town and back before I will go in any graveyard, Yanto said. No laziness sense. Graveyards indeed. If there is one place more ugly or sour to the taste than a graveyard, I hope my senses will never be burdened to see it. What will you have then? Angharad asked. Will you have the poor little girl put in the cess? Let a flame have her, said Davy. Dust to dust, and the quicker and cleaner the better. Quiet now, and let us work. Hugh, Yanto said, get a hammer and nails from the back. We are going to have this up before dark. Yanto carried the sign and I the toolbox down to the village and outside the 3 bells, where there was an old stump of a tree, and to that we nailed a notice. It asked for all men interested in their own and in the welfare of their dependents to meet in Jones the Chapel's field at 6 o'clock the next night, and to come in force to reach a decision against the operation of the sliding scale as a basis of the weekly wages, and to convene a committee to present that decision to the owners. A crowd of men gathered round us as we finished the nailing, and those who could read read out for those who could not. A lot of them coming from the funeral stopped too, and Isaac Wynne, a deacon, looked at the notice and clicked his tongue. When are you Morgan boys going to mind your own business? He said to Yanto, and without good feeling. You were always pulling the men this way and that. What right have you got to stand and speak to us? Let us see you more at chapel and less at Jones the Chapel's field. You will have a lot more respect from a lot of people. If I can have more wages, I will have less respect, and gladly, Yanto said. Children eat from wages. No use to give them respect. And as for our noses, they will go where we think. I will speak to you of a wrong, as long as you will stand to listen. That is my right, and if you think I am wrong, stand to speak against me. That is your right, and I will never question it. As for chapel, it is good in its place, but it is not a place I like because there are too many of your sort in it. That is why I like Jones the Chapel's field better. Good night to you. Retribution shall come to you, Isaac Wynne called out after us. Good, said Yanto, so long as it will come with more wages. Go on back to London, Isaac Wynne shouted. Leave your silly notions with them up there. I will tell that to the owners, Yanto shouted back, for that is where your proper wages are spent. If you are content to see what should be going into your pockets, falling into the pockets of landlords and bankers and Jews and on the backs of whores. I am not, and I will stay here to say so." "How do whores get the money?" I asked Ianto as we went back. "I am sorry I had to use the word in front of you," Ianto said, "but I was angry with that old fool. You are too young for such things. You will learn in time to come." So back we went home, and me with that empty feeling, that heating, empty feeling that rouses anger in you when you want to know something which only a few words would give to you, and you are denied to have them. Up at the house, Davy was talking to a couple of men in the back, a couple not generally looked up to, and a surprise to find near our house, for Dai Bando and Cyfarthfa Lewis were prize fighters, rough but gentle men. "Come you, Hugh," Davy said, and put his arm about my shoulder. "You know Hugh, Dai?" "Yes, indeed," said Dai, and smiled to show one tooth to the side of his mouth. He was not much taller than me, but broad as 6 and long in the arm. His face was covered with little punch cuts, all dyed blue with coal dust, and his eyes were almost closed by skin, which had been cut and healed time and time again. But his eyes were bright as a blackbird's. They said he had fought more than 1,000 fights, and the Marquis had asked him to go to Oxford to teach the students to fight, with the knuckles, of course. But he had got drunk in London and put a couple of police in hospital and landed in jail, so not many had a word for him. Cyfarthfa Lewis was younger, taller, but tidy in the chest and big in the shoulder, well known to be championing his weight at the pithead. Instead of going to chapel, he and Dai were off to town on Saturdays to fight at night, and they used to come back home in time for the morning shift on Monday. But it was certain that whatever they did on Sunday, going to chapel was not one. "Dai is going to give you lessons in the art of boxing, Hugh," Davy said. "I asked him to come up and see if he could do something with you." "Strip off, boy," Dai said in his high little voice, and making a little move with his hands that were bumpy and in funny shapes with him, and always half closed to show the big thumb joints. So I took off my shirt to the waist, and Dai looked and pinched, as my mother did with the chicken for the pot. "More in the shoulder, more in the back, more in the forearm," said Dai, with a look I thought was disgust. "And his legs want 2 more pairs like them, before they will be going on to be enough, eh, Cyfarthfa? Hit me by ear, boy." He put out his chin and poked it with his short finger, but I had a fear to give him a good one. "Go on, boy," he said. "Hit to kill." "Go on," Cyfarthfa said, and smiling. "A sovereign if you will have him on the floor." So I hit, but his head was nowhere near my fist, and I never saw Dai move. "Nothing to buy a stamp for," said Dai, "but he uses his shoulders and he stands well, eh, Cyfarthfa?" "I have seen many a worse one," Cyfarthfa said. "His legs are his trouble. He will never ride a punch with them, and one good clout and they will put him to bed." "Look you now, Dai," Davy said. "The boy's legs have stopped him going to a good school, but you shall teach him enough to fight his way through the school he is in now, legs or not, yes or no." "Yes," said Dai, and meant it. "I was up there the night his mother came. God, there is a shocking night it was too, eh, Cyfarthfa?" "Yes, indeed," Cyfarthfa said. "And we built a fire on the rock all night and slid down the mountain to the pit next morning. Say nothing to me of that night, indeed. £20 solid it cost me to have my hands right with the frost." "What time in the morning?" Davy asked, unimpatient. 4:30 at the top here," Dai said, "and 5 o'clock up the top of the mountain. An hour up there to 6, half an hour down to past, and breakfast then to 7, eh, Cyfarthfa?" "Yes," said Cyfarthfa, "and nothing only water before he comes up." "Good," said Davy, well satisfied. "You will have lessons from champions, Hugh. Now into your lessons from books." So I went from Dai Bando and Cyfarthfa Lewis into Pericles and John Stuart Mill. That first morning, Davy came in to give me a shake and hold down the loose board, while I crossed the landing in quiet at 4:15 in pitch black, and cold to make your teeth chop. No wash because a bucket would rattle in the well to wake the hill, and only enough in the house for breakfast first thing. Then off outside the house into a wind with ice in it, bringing tears to the eyes and a pain like the grip of a clothes peg to the nose. Dai and Cyfarthfa came from the lee of the last house, both of them black lumps, and only their bootfalls to tell which was them and which not. "That you, Hugh Morgan?" Dai said, and shouted in the wind, but only a whisper come in. "Yes," I shouted back. "Good morning." "To hell," Dai said, and spat. "Come you." We went up the mountain together, but I saw in surprise that Cyfarthfa was following with a dozen or more from the sound, but Di put his finger down my neck and swore when I stopped to see. Up we went, quicker than I had ever gone before, but being late for school a couple of times had given me practice in running up, so I was not far behind Di at the top and hardly a breath out of place. "Off with your shirt," Di said, and pulling his off and all the others pulling the clothes from them. So off came mine, and I thought I would freeze, sure, for the wind was high and calling low and strong enough to push you over flat. It was still dark, but above the other valley just starting to show grey, black everywhere else, and nothing but black down in the valleys, except where Myrddin Jaws was getting up, with a little yellow light and the light in the winding house down at the colliery. In the coming of the morning, Di Bando was a man to fear. His skin was pinkish with cold, and with muscle to make you doubt your sight. His arm muscles were bigger than my thigh, and over the top of his trews, 6 squares, each as big as my 2 fists together, stood out so that you could have rattled a stick over them. His shoulders had great fat fingers of muscle leading down to the tops of his arms like opening a fan, and behind his shoulders bunches of muscle lay about the blades, with 2 great cords going down on each side of his backbone. I will never forget Di Bando in that grey light, with night all about him and cold pricking his skin to little pimples as his shirt came from him and he pulled at his trews. Cyfartha was not much less than Di, and the boys and men with them were all the same, only I was skin and bones. "Come on, boys," Di said, and slapping himself hard, "get the blood going with you." For minutes we all danced about there, slapping the cold out of us and hopping and jumping about like mad flies, until the light was coming apple green and orange, with lines of gold, and we could see each other, and the trees taking shape and colours of deep green. "Down on the back," Di ordered, and down flat we went, on the short grass that was smooth as moss, covered with the crystals of frozen dew and sparkling lovely, but so cold it was like red hot to the back. "Kick the legs above your heads and back and forward the arms," said Di, and that we did. "Sit up and lie back, no hands," Di shouted, and up and down we went until, never mind the cold, we were sweating and hot as hot. "Now pair off, and straight left one, guard the other," Di said. "Who, Morgan? Over here." Over I went, and while Cyfartha and the other boys paired off, Di put up his fists, and I put up mine, and we did straight lefts and slipping them, and riding them and ducking, with the punches to counter and those to score. Then Di made me come in close and hit him on those muscles of his in the belly, with half-arm blows to strengthen my punching muscles at the back, until I was ready to drop. "Good," he said, and smiling he was. "There is plenty in you indeed. Run to school and put fat and muscle on your legs, but run, not walk. Strong legs you want, nothing else. I will give you the rest." "Thank you, Di," I said, and so pleased I could have jumped across the valley. "When shall I fight now?" "Today," Di said. "Fight all the time. You will only learn in a fight how much you have got to learn. When you know that, you can come and ask and I will show you. But fight." "Good," I said. "I will fight today." "Same time tomorrow," Di said. "Put on your shirt and run down the mountain home. And fight, is it?" "Yes," I said. "Today indeed." When I got in, my mother had my breakfast ready, and when I had washed, I sat to it, but she sat beside me and smoothed my hair. "Did you go out on the mountain this morning, Hugh, my little one?" she asked me. "Yes, Mamma," I said. "To learn to fight, is it?" she asked me, as though she was hoping I would say no. "Yes, Mamma," I said. "There," she said, and sat back, hopeless. "I knew it when I heard you go from the house. Right, you. But if you come back with bruises again, not a word shall you have from me. Nothing. Break your old nose and see what I will do. Nothing. Not a word, not a look." "But I must learn, Mamma," I said, "or I shall have them and nothing to stop them coming, and nothing to give back." "I am not listening to you," she said, and over at the fire now with her hands over her eyes. "Breaking your mamma's heart every time you do go from the house. Remember what I say, not a word, not a look." "Yes, Mamma," I said, and finished my tea and picked up my bag and can and off.